The night cracked open with the sound of Lena's sob, her chest shaking as if the walls themselves could hear her shame. She whispered, "Why does love always betray me?" Her voice bled through the silence like broken glass on polished marble floors. Marcus stood in the darkened doorway, his tall figure casting a shadow longer than the room, his jaw clenched tight, eyes refusing to soften. He said, "You should never have trusted me." Lena's breath hitched, a half cry, half laugh of disbelief, her hands trembling against her chest as if she could hold her heart from falling apart. The rain outside slammed against the window, each drop echoing the weight of secrets neither dared to confess. Lena whispered again, "Was it ever real?" Marcus's silence was more violent than words, a punishment sharper than any insult. The air felt too heavy, suffocating, every second stretching into eternity. He finally muttered, "Real enough to ruin us both." And, in that moment, the world itself seemed to fracture, leaving only pain and questions in its wake. The room held its breath after his words, as though even the air feared to move. Lena whispered, "You broke me before I could even begin." She felt small, yet her voice carried sharpness that cut him. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, hiding the storm inside. He muttered, "I never promised forever." She looked at him with disbelief, her mind replaying every touch and stolen glance. Every memory felt like betrayal painted over with desire. The thunder outside roared like judgment. Her tears turned to silent rage, shoulders stiffening as if preparing for war. She thought, "If this is love, it is cruel." Marcus lowered his head, but pride sealed his lips shut. The distance between them felt wider than oceans, though only steps apart. Lena rose from the bed slowly, every movement deliberate, as though refusing to let her pain break her posture. She said, "You made me believe." Marcus's throat tightened, but his words came cold. "Belief is dangerous." She walked past him toward the window, the rain reflecting in her eyes. Her hands clenched at her sides as memories collided. His smile, his warmth, now turned to venom. The silence screamed louder than her voice. She wanted to scream, yet she stayed quiet, her strength carved from the ache inside. Marcus turned slightly, his hand twitching as if he wanted to stop her but chose not to. Between them hung a silence filled with everything unsaid, and everything too heavy to carry. The storm raged louder as Lena pressed her forehead against the glass, her breath fogging the cold surface. She whispered, "I should have known better." Marcus's face softened for a fleeting second, the mask slipping. He said, "I'm not the man you thought I was." His words carried regret, buried under pride. She turned her head just enough to glimpse him through the corner of her eye, and for that instant, their pain mirrored each other. The thunder cracked, splitting the silence. Lena felt the urge to collapse but instead let the storm outside echo the storm within. Marcus stepped back into the darkness, retreating like a shadow afraid of light. Their hearts beat in sync, though on opposite sides of truth. The storm quieted for a moment, as though the world itself paused to listen. Lena whispered, "You've ruined me, Marcus." Her words cracked like thunder inside him. He exhaled sharply but did not answer. His silence was heavier than lies. She turned, her eyes hollow but blazing with fire. Her body trembled, yet she stood tall. Marcus pressed his palm briefly to the doorframe, grounding himself against her pain. He thought of reaching out but froze. The storm resumed its roar, filling the silence they couldn't bridge. Lena closed her eyes and muttered, "One day you'll feel this." The words lingered like a curse. Between them, the storm screamed the truth, neither dared to fully speak. Morning crept through the curtains, fragile light spilling across the worn carpet of Lena's small bedroom. She lay curled beneath thin sheets, staring at the ceiling with eyes that had cried too long. She whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore." Her voice sounded like a stranger's in her own throat. Memories replayed in flashes, the warmth of Marcus's touch, the coldness of his silence. Each recollection tore at her heart. She thought of her mother's warning, that men with power only take. Lena rolled onto her side, clutching the pillow as if it might save her. She said, "I wanted love, not ruin." Her words dissolved in the morning air. Outside, the city groaned awake, cars honking, voices rising, life carrying on without her. Yet inside, her world was shattered glass. The sunlight revealed the weight of her exhaustion. She pulled herself upright slowly, spine rigid with defiance. She muttered, "I will not break." Lena dragged herself to the bathroom, gripping the sink as though it might hold her together. The cracked mirror reflected a face she hardly recognized, eyes ringed with sleepless nights and lips pale with defeat. She whispered, "You deserve better," though the words shook with doubt. She touched her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw, remembering when she smiled easily. Marcus's shadow haunted even this space, whispering that she had been naive. Lena turned on the tap, splashing water against her face, letting the cold sting like punishment and renewal. She said, "I will not let him define me." For a moment, the water washed away the memory, leaving her skin glistening and raw. She inhaled sharply, lifting her chin toward the reflection. The girl staring back was broken, but her eyes glimmered with survival. Later that afternoon, Lena sat on a park bench, the weight of her past pressing against her shoulders. Children laughed nearby, their joy mocking the heaviness in her chest. She whispered, "I used to believe in forever." A woman passed by holding hands with her partner, and Lena's gaze followed them with longing she wished she could erase. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, until the sting reminded her she was alive. She muttered, "I won't be the girl they pity." The breeze tugged at her braids, carrying the smell of wet grass and city air. She thought of Marcus, of his cold eyes, and shivered despite the sunlight. She sat taller, trying to reclaim her dignity in the simple act of not collapsing. She exhaled slowly, as though letting go of pieces of him with each breath. At home, Lena's best friend Maya burst through the door, eyes sharp with concern. Maya said, "You look like hell, girl." Lena forced a hollow smile, replying, "I feel worse." Maya dropped her bag and sat close, grabbing Lena's hand firmly. She said, "Tell me what he did." Lena's throat tightened, but the words spilled like broken glass. She whispered, "He took my heart and left me with nothing." Maya's expression softened, fury flickering beneath compassion. She said, "You are not nothing, Lena." Her voice struck like lightning, cutting through Lena's despair. Lena closed her eyes as tears threatened again. Maya wrapped an arm around her, murmuring, "You will rise from this, I swear it." For the first time in days, Lena felt the faint warmth of hope flicker in the ashes. The evening settled with heavy silence, but Lena and Maya's conversation lingered like sparks in the dark. Lena whispered, "I don't want to be broken forever." Maya squeezed her hand tighter, saying, "You won't. You're stronger than you know." Lena tilted her head back against the couch, eyes tracing cracks in the ceiling as if searching for answers. She muttered, "Sometimes I think love is a curse." Maya shook her head sharply, replying, "No, love is not the curse. People who twist it are." Lena swallowed hard, the truth sinking deeper. She thought of Marcus, of the way he made her feel alive before destroying her. She said, "Then I will not let him win." Maya smiled faintly, whispering, "That's the girl I know." The night hummed outside with crickets and the faint buzz of streetlights, but inside, Lena felt the smallest seed of strength begin to grow. The cafe buzzed with late afternoon chatter, the air thick with the scent of roasted coffee and pastries. Lena sat by the window, staring into her untouched cup, her reflection blurred by streaks of sunlight. She whispered, "I just want peace." The bell above the door chimed, and her heart stumbled in her chest as Marcus stepped inside. He looked around with calculated calm, but when his eyes met hers, the world shrank to silence. She gripped the cup, knuckles white, muttering, "Not here, not now." He approached slowly, his presence pressing down on her like the storm that once shattered her. His voice was low, almost hesitant. "Marcus," said Lena, "we need to talk." Her pulse raced, torn between fury and the ache of longing. She said, "You don't get to walk back into my life like nothing happened." Marcus slid into the seat across from Lena, his eyes fixed on her as though searching for something he had lost. She kept her gaze on the coffee, refusing to look directly at him. He said, "I never meant for it to end that way." Her laugh was sharp, bitter. Lena replied, "You ended me, Marcus." The words landed like stones. His jaw flexed as he exhaled slowly, leaning closer. He whispered, "You still matter to me." Lena finally looked up, her eyes blazing. She said, "Matter? You tore my soul apart." Silence swelled between them, heavier than the murmurs around. Outside, the sky darkened, clouds gathering as if echoing their turmoil. Lena rose abruptly, chair scraping against the floor as heads turned. She said, "I will not be your mistake twice." Marcus stood too, his voice desperate but low. "Lena, please hear me." Her breath shook, but her posture was steel. She whispered, "You don't get to beg now." Customers glanced curiously, tension rippling across the cafe. Marcus reached out as if to touch her arm, but she stepped back, fire in her eyes. She said, "Don't you dare." His hand fell, helpless. The storm outside broke, rain pelting the glass like applause to their destruction. Lena's heart screamed with conflict, but her legs carried her toward the door, each step a defiance carved from pain. Outside the cafe, Lena pulled her hood over her braids as the rain drenched her shoulders. She whispered, "This pain will not own me." Yet Marcus followed, his voice cutting through the storm. He said, "You can't keep running from me." She turned, drenched, eyes blazing through tears and rain alike. She said, "I'm not running, I'm surviving." Marcus froze, raindrops dripping down his jawline, the weight of her words striking harder than the storm. Passers-by hurried past, umbrellas shielding them from a battle they could not see. For a moment, time paused in the rain, two broken souls facing each other, neither able to step closer nor farther away. The rain slowed to a mist as the street lamps flickered on, casting golden halos in the wet air. Lena's voice was low but steady. She said, "I loved you, Marcus, and you ruined me." His chest rose sharply, pain flickering in his dark eyes. He whispered, "I loved you too, more than I should have." Her lips trembled, the confession slicing through her armor, but she swallowed the weakness. She said that love destroyed us. He stepped closer, hesitant, rain dripping from his hand. He said, "Or maybe it's the only thing that can save us." Lena's heart quivered, torn between surrender and survival. She turned away, muttering, "I can't do this." The mist clung to her skin as she walked into the glowing city night, leaving him behind in the half-light of regret. The night pressed heavy inside Maya's apartment, shadows stretched long against the walls. Lena sat hunched forward, her face pale with disbelief, as Maya's words cut deeper than the storm ever had. Maya said, "He isn't who you think he is." Lena's breath caught, her pulse hammering in her ears. She whispered, "What are you talking about?" Maya hesitated, then dropped the truth like a blade. She said, "Marcus has a family, Lena. A wife. A child." The silence exploded in Lena's chest, ripping through every fragile hope she still clung to. She staggered to her feet, muttering, "No, you're lying." Maya shook her head, eyes sharp with painful honesty. She said, "I wish I was." Lena pressed her hands against her skull, as if to crush the words out. She screamed, "How could he?" Lena stormed into the street, the night air slicing her skin colder than the rain. She whispered to herself, "He lied to me. He ruined me." Her steps were frantic, her breath unsteady. The city lights blurred through her tears. She stopped under a flickering street lamp, gripping the pole as her chest heaved. She said, "How could I have been so blind?" The truth poisoned every memory, every kiss, every promise now rotting with betrayal. Her legs trembled, but rage steadied her. She muttered, "He will not break me again." Cars passed, horns echoing her turmoil. The world rushed on while hers cracked apart. The next day, Lena confronted Marcus outside his office tower, glass walls gleaming in the morning sun. Her voice shook with fury as she said, "Tell me the truth, Marcus. Do you have a family?" His jaw locked, silence stretching, guilt flickering across his eyes. Lena's heart plummeted, tears stinging. She whispered, "Say something." He exhaled harshly, muttering, "Yes, but it's complicated." Rage surged in her veins, her hands curling into fists. She said, "Complicated? You shattered me with lies." Marcus stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I never meant for you to find out like this." She spat back, "You never meant for me to know at all." Later, alone in her room, Lena sat on the floor, surrounded by photographs and memories. Her fingers trembled as she held a picture of Marcus smiling, the smile she once trusted. She whispered, "It was all a lie." Her chest heaved as she ripped the photo in half, the sound tearing through the silence like thunder. She muttered, "He will not own my heart anymore." Yet, the pain lingered, carved into her ribs. The storm inside her was louder than any outside. Her phone buzzed with his name glowing on the screen. She stared at it with fire in her eyes, then pressed decline. She said, "You don't get to reach me anymore." Night fell again, and Marcus stood outside Lena's building, drenched in regret. He whispered to himself, "I never wanted to lose her." His hands shook as he reached for the door, but hesitation froze him. Inside, Lena stood at her window, staring down at his figure below. She muttered, "You don't deserve to be near me." Tears welled, but she refused to let them fall. She pulled the curtains closed, shutting him out. Marcus lowered his head, shoulders sagging under the weight of betrayal and loss. He turned and walked into the shadows, swallowed by the night. Inside, Lena pressed her forehead to the glass, whispering, "I will rise from this." The storm inside Lena mirrored the storm outside, lightning splitting the sky as she entered the abandoned warehouse where Marcus had asked to meet. Her footsteps echoed against cracked concrete. She whispered, "This ends tonight." Marcus stood in the shadows, his figure tall and sharp against the broken windows. He said, "I never wanted to hurt you." Her chest rose with fury, her voice slicing back, "You destroyed me, Marcus." His eyes burned with guilt and longing as thunder roared above. He muttered, "I destroyed myself too." She stepped closer, her fists clenched tight, tears threatening but refusing to fall. Lena said, "You don't get to make excuses." The air between them vibrated with rage and unspoken love. The rain hammered louder, dripping through holes in the roof as Lena faced Marcus head-on. She shouted, "You lied about everything." Her voice cracked with both rage and heartbreak. Marcus raised his hands, palms open in surrender. He said, "Lena, I loved you. That was never a lie." Her laugh was hollow, cruel in its brokenness. She said, "Love doesn't come with a wife and child hidden in the shadows." His face twisted with shame, words choking in his throat. She whispered, "You made me believe in forever." He replied, "Forever was real for me too, even if I failed it." Her eyes glistened, caught between wanting to strike him and collapse into his arms. The warehouse walls seemed to close in as silence stretched, broken only by rain. Maya's voice echoed from the doorway, sharp and fearless. She said, "Lena, don't let him twist you again." Maya stepped inside, her eyes locked on Marcus like a blade. Marcus's gaze hardened, jaw set. He said, "This isn't your fight." Maya shot back, "When you hurt her, it became mine." Lena's head spun, torn between their words. She whispered, "Stop. Both of you." Her voice wavered, but her body stood firm. Marcus turned toward her, his voice trembling. "Choose, Lena. Do you want me gone forever?" Her lips parted, breath shallow, unable to answer. The tension snapped like lightning as Lena stepped forward, fire in her eyes. She said, "I am not a prize to be fought over." Maya fell silent, her face softening with respect. Marcus looked stricken, his lips parting in shock. Lena's voice rose, fierce and trembling. You both treat me like I don't have a choice. But I do. Her chest heaved with power reclaimed. She pointed at Marcus, tears spilling at last. She said, You lied, and you will live with that. She turned to Maya, whispering, And you cannot fight battles, I must face myself. For the first time, Lena's voice silenced the storm within. Marcus dropped his gaze, shoulders sagging under the weight of his own betrayal. He whispered, I never stopped loving you. Lena's breath caught, the ache raw but her resolve stronger. She said, Love without truth is poison. Her voice carried finality that echoed in the cavernous space. He stepped forward, desperate, but she raised her hand like a shield. She said, Do not come closer. Tears streamed freely now, but her chin lifted with dignity. Maya moved beside her silently, a grounding presence. The storm outside began to calm, rain softening to a steady whisper. Lena exhaled, her voice breaking yet resolute, This is where it ends. The words shattered Marcus more than any scream could. The warehouse door slammed shut behind Lena, the storm's echo fading into the night. She walked through the wet streets, shoes splashing in shallow puddles, her chest heaving with exhaustion. She whispered, It's over. Finally over. Yet her heart ached, trembling between relief and despair. She stopped beneath a streetlight, rain dripping from her braids, her breath visible in the cool air. She muttered, I survived him. The words were shaky, but carried weight. For the first time her spine felt straighter, her steps heavier with strength. The silence of the city felt like a balm after chaos, wrapping around her like fragile armor. At Maya's apartment, Lena curled on the couch with a blanket wrapped tight around her. Maya handed her a mug of tea, sitting beside her with quiet strength. Lena whispered, I feel empty. Maya nodded slowly, saying, That's what healing feels like at first. Lena's fingers trembled around the cup, steam fogging her lashes. She said, What if I never find love again? Maya's hand pressed over hers, firm and grounding. She replied, Then you'll find yourself first. Tears welled in Lena's eyes, spilling onto her cheeks, but this time the tears felt cleansing, not suffocating. She whispered, Maybe that's enough. Days later, Lena walked alone through the park at sunrise, the air crisp and filled with birdsong. She whispered, The world is still moving. Her shoes crunched softly on gravel, dew glistening on grass. She remembered Marcus's words, each one now hollow, replaced by her own vow to endure. She paused by a pond, watching ripples stretch across the still water. She muttered, I will not drown in him anymore. Her reflection stared back, not broken but fragile and alive. She exhaled slowly, feeling strength seep into her bones, as though the morning itself offered her forgiveness. Lena returned home that evening, standing before her mirror with steady eyes. She said softly, This is me. This is enough. Her braids framed her face, her skin glowing with resilience instead of sorrow. She touched her cheek gently, no longer searching for the ghost of Marcus in her reflection. She whispered, I choose myself. The words carried finality and rebirth. She slipped off her hoodie, folding it carefully, as though shedding a past life. The silence of the room felt sacred, her breath steady as she reclaimed the girl she thought she had lost. That night, Lena sat at her desk, pen moving slowly across paper. She whispered, I write this for myself. Her words spilled like healing, not for Marcus, not for revenge, but for the girl she was, and the woman she was becoming. She wrote, You are not broken. You are whole. You are more than love lost. Tears blurred her vision, but her hand never stopped. She placed the pen down with trembling relief, whispering, I am free. Outside, the moonlight poured into her room, soft and steady. For the first time, Lena smiled, fragile but real. The city was quiet, blanketed in the stillness of early dawn. Lena walked alone through the empty streets, her hood down, the cold air brushing against her cheeks. She whispered, It feels different now. Every building she passed seemed less threatening, every shadow less heavy. The silence around her was not suffocating anymore, but calming, like a promise of peace. She thought of Marcus, but his face no longer owned her. She said softly, "You will not haunt me forever." Her footsteps echoed, steady and sure. She inhaled the crisp morning air, feeling it fill her chest with something she had not felt in weeks: freedom. Later, Lena stood at her mother's grave, fingers brushing the cold stone. She whispered, "I think I understand now, Mama." Tears welled, but her lips curved with a faint smile. She said, "Love isn't meant to destroy us, and I won't let it again." Her voice broke but carried strength. She placed a small flower at the base of the headstone, hands steady despite trembling inside. She whispered, "You raised me stronger than I knew." The wind stirred gently, carrying her words into the sky. For the first time, Lena felt her mother's absence as a guiding presence instead of a wound. Back at the park, Lena sat on a bench where children played in the distance. Their laughter no longer mocked her pain, but reminded her of joy that still existed. She whispered, "Life goes on." She pulled her journal from her bag, opening to a blank page. She wrote, "I am not broken. I am becoming." Her pen moved steadily, her breath steady too. The world around her felt alive, green leaves rustling, sunlight painting the pond in shimmering gold. She whispered, "I am still here." The weight on her chest loosened, replaced by a soft lightness. That evening, Marcus stood outside Lena's building one last time, shadows stretching around him. He whispered, "I lost her." His voice cracked with finality. He turned slowly, walking away into the night. Upstairs, Lena stood by her window, watching his figure fade into the distance. She said softly, "Goodbye, Marcus." There was no hate in her voice, only release. She let the curtain fall, turning back into her room with calm resolve. Her heart was scarred but beating strong, each thump carrying her forward. She whispered, "This is my beginning." The night hummed with quiet acceptance. Later that night, Lena lay in bed beneath the glow of the moon, her eyes open but no longer haunted. She whispered, "I will remember, but I will not be broken by it." Her lips curved into a fragile smile. She reached for her journal on the bedside table and wrote one final line. "I survived, and that is enough." She closed her eyes, the night wrapping around her softly. Silence filled the room, but it was no longer heavy. It was peaceful, complete. Her final breath before sleep carried the words, "I am free."